Oh, is that why?
Plus profit. Oh, okay. The other thing is a purpose.
Hello, everybody. I am going to call today's Yountville Town Council meeting to order. It is Tuesday, February the 6th at 3 p.m. So with that, I'd like to first go to our town clerk for a special announcement.
All right. Councilmember Knight is joining us via Zoom today pursuant to AB 2449 due to an emergency circumstance. Councilmember Knight, are there any individuals in the room with you over the age of 18?
No.
Thank you. And that is it. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you very much. Town Attorney Bell.
Yeah, just to confirm, is there a video feed for him so that we can see him? There he is. One of the requirements of the Brown Act. All right, that's all I have.
All right. Thank you very much. And for today's meeting, since it is a hybrid meeting, all of our roll call will be taken by our town clerk today. So with that, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Reeves? Here. Councilmember McKee-Cant?
Here.
Councilmember Knight?
Present?
Vice Mayor Tripp? Mayor Moeller?
Here. Thank you. Can we all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yes, please.
Thank you, everyone. And now, if there aren't any changes to our agenda, can I get a motion and a second for approval, please?
Move approval of the agenda for February 6th.
We
Second.
have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Reeves?
Yes.
Councilmember McKee-Cant?
Yes.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tripp? Yes. Mayor Moeller?
Yes. Thank you. We've just adopted today's agenda. Now it's time for council member announcements. And just hit your red button and I'll call on you. Councilmember McKee-Cant.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we go into the consent calendar, I did want to just move forward item 8F regarding the tree that we're planting for Mike Gergich. I just want to call a shout out to the Roots of Peace organization that he participated in 2000 and his humanitarian efforts. I worked for him back in the 90s and he's a good man, but to have changed not only Croatia, but minefields worldwide by working with organizations to uproot mines and plant not only vineyards, but also fruit trees and vegetation. I think it's something that we can be very proud of to call him a local. Thank you.
And Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor Moeller and the council for the opportunity to participate this way. I appreciate that. I had a recent heart surgery that was very successful. It's always good, and I'm glad for the San Francisco Kaiser thoracic surgeons for the work that they did. I just wanted to briefly say I know all of us want to have thanked staff for the work they've done during the power outage and the rainstorm. As usual, it's a very effective, rapid response, and they have just a tremendous commitment to the community. The last thing I also wanted to mention real quickly was that I read that the Yountville Community Foundation met recently, and they were enthusiastic about administering the small projects grant program that we have in our budget, and that will be available to nonprofits serving Yountville. I just wanted to thank them for their support, and I think it's a worthy project for the Community Foundation because it may also allow community members to make donations to augment that fund. So I look forward to the work that the Community Foundation does for the Small Projects Fund. And just recently I was on the at the King Center and looking at a 3D interactive gallery of the Coretta Scott King exhibit there. And one of her quotes is that the greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the help and the compassionate help and actions of its members and community. And we have that type of compassionate community, and I look forward to the Small Projects Fund contributing to that. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Councilmember Reeves.
Yeah, I was originally going to announce that tomorrow was going to be a picnic with the vet at the Veterans Home, but because of COVID, that has been canceled. So I just wanted everyone to know that there might be an additional chance to sign up, but those who already did sign up to be hosts, it will be postponed probably until March.
Okay, thank you. And I have a couple of announcements. Last weekend was the annual Yountville Short Film Festival. It was very well attended, and many of the venues were sold out. Another great event that's bringing more and more people to Yountville. Also, town manager and I did a meet and greet with Mike Thompson a couple weeks ago to kind of introduce. We were invited to introduce ourselves and meet with him, and it was a great opportunity to just have a good discussion with a U.S. congressman. And also today, the town manager and I also were invited to the Napa Valley Vintners annual meeting. Really an amazing group that they do a lot for the community in terms of raising money and supporting a lot of the local hospitals and clinical lay. So just wanted to give them a thank you for inviting us and sharing everything that they do for our community. So with that, seeing no more council member comments, we have no proclamations or recognitions, and now is the time for public comment that's not related to anything on our agenda today.
Just real quick, I just want to clarify one thing that Councilmember Knight said. We did meet with the Community Foundation. However, there will be an agenda item coming back to council, likely in March, for your approval before that program can officially be transferred to the foundation. So we did have a good meeting. They are enthusiastic. However, the council will still need to chime in on that. So that'll be in March. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of the process.
Okay, so last call for public comment not related to anything on the agenda. Come on up and give us your name, please.
Hello, Mary Ann Moffett.
Can you bring that up? I want to make sure everyone in TV land can hear you.
How's that? Is that better? I wanted to update you on a matter that I wrote to you all about over the weekend. There was a public meeting regarding the moving of the Welcome to Napa Valley sign to the Caltrans staging area across from Washington Street on Highway 29. There was a community meeting with the Vine Trail yesterday in your community center, and it was announced that they have decided not to pursue that location for the sign. So I wanted to let you know that I did ask you if it was possible to reconsider the endorsement until we knew more about the design, the layout of the design of the rest area that they were planning for that, for the Caltrans staging area. So right now it's a moot point, so I would hope that you don't spend any time, but I would hope to reserve the right to come back to you and talk to you about it, about your endorsement, if this comes back to after the Vine Trail is built and they still don't have a place for the sign, and it resurfaces. So thank you for your time, and hopefully we won't have to revisit it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Would anybody else like to come up? Seeing none, let's move on to our consent calendar. Do we have a a motion, or Councilmember Reeves, would you like to?
I move approval of the consent calendar, and I just wanted to echo Robin's comments about the Mike Gergich dedication, because I think it really is a world-class gesture that he made, and that we should support that gesture with our space and consideration.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion. We need a second for the consent.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Reeves?
Yes?
Councilmember McKee Cant?
Yes.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tripp? Yes. Mayor Moeller?
Yes. So that passes unanimously. Thank you. Now, our quarterly, always a favorite. We have 2 guest presentations. We're going to start with, I see Sheriff giving the quarterly report. Mike Malott, come on up.
Sorry. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. As you can see from the slide, I'm Sergeant Mike Malott with the Napa Sheriff's Office presenting the fourth quarter public safety report for the Sheriff's Office on behalf of Sheriff Ortiz. So this is for October through December. If we can go to the first slide, please. Thank you for going through them too. I changed the charts a little bit this quarter. Previously, I've done same quarter last year, previous quarter, and this quarter because it's the end of the year. I figured it was a good time to just include all the quarters of this year so you can see the progression of how it goes through each quarter. We can start with the calls for service. All the charts are going to have a very similar pattern, which is that the spring and summer quarters are quite a bit busier for us. As you can see, our most recent this past quarter, our overall calls for service dropped quite a bit from the other quarters. Also down from same quarter last year. This will be the last quarter that we include the patrol checks, probably because we've taken them out of that calculation. But even with that, those patrol checks included, we're still down quite a bit for this quarter. I would say it's just seasonality and based on driving around town, seen some fewer cars in town this last quarter. Reports and arrests about the same, down to 17 for this quarter. Our arrests at 4 are up a little bit from the same quarter last year. Same type of arrests we have in past quarters. Generally, a couple of domestic violence arrests and a couple of warrant arrests. If we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So our uniform crime reports, these don't really change seasonally or quarter to quarter, probably because we really have low numbers. There's not a lot of change, I think, possible. But during this quarter, we had 2 domestic violence incidents. That's our only crimes against persons reports that occurred. Both of those were incidents that occurred at local hotels. Its hotel guest was not, it didn't involve local residents. Our property crimes, we had 1 burglary at a residence that involved a gentleman who was having some work done at his house, and property turned up missing. This is not a forced entry residential burglary. It's a burglary that occurred. The reporting party believes when the workers were inside the house. The other burglary was a hotel-related also incident. There was no forced entry. Guests had some items come up missing. They believed that it was related to hotel staff. two thefts, petty thefts that occurred. One was a wallet that was discovered missing after the owner had visited a local restaurant. One of the credit cards in the wallet was used at a Napa store. We were able to identify two suspects in that case from video, and then talked to them. They admitted their involvement in it, and charges have been filed with the DA's office in that case. The other theft was theft of a license plate, which was reported in the town of Yountville, but again, via video, we were able to determine that the car didn't have the plate on it when it actually came to Yountville, and it was most likely stolen in Vallejo. In that case, it's a courtesy report. We still take the report and enter it as a stolen plate. We can move on to the next slide. Traffic-related statistics. We had no traffic collisions reported in the town this quarter. Again, as I said, previous quarters, that doesn't include Highway 29 or the Veterans Home where CHP handles the reports. It also doesn't include reports where there's exchanges of information. So my guess is fire is going to come up here and say that they responded to some traffic collisions. We're both telling the truth. As far as the enforcement statistics, same pattern as the other slides. Our enforcement statistics are down this quarter from spring summer. Aside from misdemeanor citations, we're up a little bit from the same quarter last year. Again, I believe likely seasonality and just the amount of people in town. We can move on to the next slide. Training and engagement. So every time I do this, I realize how long ago this quarter started, because Yountville Days Parade seems like forever ago. But Yountville Days Parade at the beginning of the quarter, the sheriff's office had entrance in it. The sheriff led the parade. And then additionally, we handled traffic control with a lot of help from volunteers from the town. Napa County CERT came out and helped us, which they've done on actually a few different events. CHP helped us on the highway. So we get a lot of help with traffic control for that event, but the event went well. Halloween candy handouts. I passed out Halloween candy. I always miss a lot of opportunities to take photos, which I feel like is where I should be including them. But I gave out a lot of candy and got my photograph taken with kids. Did not get any for myself and didn't think about it until I put together the quarterly report. We attended the council study sessions here, including the study session on climate, health, and safety. Attended the county or the workshops, the community workshops on emergency preparedness, and the debrief regarding those workshops. And then lastly, we, along with the Napa Sheriff's Office, and I'm in that picture, and you can see Michael Moore down there with like a guinea pig. Second from the left on the bottom, Deputy Moore from town. The Sheriff's Office, including Yountville, participated in the 2023 Adopt with a Cop/Firefighter contest, which I always have to include something for fire in here. If we can just hit, it's not going to be in the next slide, but just move on. It should do an animation.
Oh, okay.
We'll see what happens. There it is.
Wow.
There's Sheriff Ortiz accepting the award for the second year in a row for the Napa Sheriff's Office, winning the Adopt with a Cop/Firefighter contest, winning over the firefighters. I think that's it for that. If we can move on to the next slide. This is crime prevention safety tip. Every time I do this, I try and come up with something relevant to the quarter, but I feel like I've kind of repeatedly hit the fraud, stop sign, drive safe, the same thing over and over. So I moved out of town a little bit. We've recently had in the county, not in the town of Yountville, but as close as on Yountville Crossroad, reports from a local telecommunication company regarding the theft of copper wire from overhead lines. And so at least some of these, based on the investigation, appear to have occurred during daytime, or at least the lines cut during the daytime. And again, it's overhead lines. So it's likely, we don't obviously know exactly what's happening, but it's likely someone with a vehicle that's able to get up into the lines, or it also appears that there's some proximity to trees. So my request to the public would be, if you see anything suspicious along those lines, could be women also, men or women in trees near power lines, if you would please report that to the sheriff's office. And I think it generally applies to anything you see that is like this, not necessarily people in trees, but out of the ordinary that looks like it could be a crime. Please call us, and we're happy to go out and make contact with the people out there. And if we can go into the next slide, the telephone number for the sheriff's office to contact us. The non-emergency number for dispatch is generally the best number to call, 707-253-4451, and dispatch will put you through to the right person.
Great.
And I think that's it.
Great report. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. We might have some questions from council members. Councilmember Reeves.
Hi, thanks for that report, Mike. I am interested in anything you can give us regarding National Night Out, or for Yountville, at least a Yountville Night Out for emergency preparedness, and if you have any ideas of when it might be, or...
So National Night Out itself is, I think it's August 8th this year, August 6th. I don't have the date with me, but it's first Tuesday in August. We've had some discussions with this about this already. I don't know if I'm not going to say it's my preference right now. One of the suggestions that was made was that rather than have this event on National Night Out, when we already have multiple events going on throughout the valley and resources spread out, that it would be good for the town to have a Yountville Night Out. Our own separate night, don't need to do it on the same night as the others. That would give us the ability to have those resources that are spread out throughout the valley come and be present here locally. I do like, I could talk about this for a long time. Maybe this is, I don't know if this is something.
I think generally say we're going to do something, and we're working with the sheriff's office between those two options. And, as soon as we make the decision, we'll obviously make the community aware. But I think likely in August regardless. So I think we're shooting for August, but we're kind of weighing the options based on what the sergeant just explained. So
The planning has started for it. What I would say is the one thing that maybe would be beneficial would be that at some point we would need some volunteers, some neighborhood volunteers to kind of spearhead that neighborhood program. Doesn't mean a lot of work, just means that they will help us get it rolling in their neighborhood. So we'll put out some information through the town's website and social media. But that's where, if anybody is thinking maybe they would like to be involved, that's where we could definitely use some involvement.
So if we're allowed to share our preference, I would definitely support Yountville having their own date for that event.
We have council meeting on first Tuesday, so we can all be there.
Well, perfect.
it's funny, that's a historic problem with a lot of councils, but truthfully, since we meet at 3:00, we could accommodate it. But we are leaning, just so you know, towards doing, since there isn't a tradition in Yountville, and a lot of communities do, then I think we can start our own. But I think they do get a lot of media, or at least a lot of information out. So my recommendation would be as soon after as possible, so we can, sort of leverage the work that they do for National Night Out, and then we can do it soon after in August. So we'll keep you posted. And I do think, there's kind of two versions of it, just so you know, not to get too deep, but the older version, which is what we're preference, is more neighborhood type block parties where the sheriff or the law enforcement goes around each of those, and it's sort of a meet your neighbor sort of idea. The more it sort of has evolved more into like a festival or a fair, and I think we're preferring the older school version. So those are the things that we're working towards, and once we have some dates and some information, we'll provide it to everyone.
I think it works a little more hand in hand with the emergency preparedness concept that we're looking for.
Okay, thanks. Vice Mayor Tripp.
I had two questions. One, I wanted to ask you, do our statistics get rolled up and reported somewhere, like in a database? You mentioned something about reporting, and I had never really thought about that. Our crime statistics.
UCR reports used to get reported to FBI,
Okay.
And that's why we originally had them in here, and I've just kept it consistent because it's even though it's small numbers for us, it breaks them down into just a few categories, and we actually have some numbers. Currently, it's the name of it is NIBRS. There's a new, so FBI switched to a new reporting system, NIBRS, which is incident-based reporting, and it breaks it down into a lot more small detail, which if you're in New York probably works great. If you're in Yountville, you have a lot of zeros.
Right.
So,
okay.
So that's NIBRS reporting still occurs, still gets reported to FBI.
Okay. And the other question I wanted to ask you, I participate in the current events class in Yountville, which we have this great leader, Larry Kamer, who's a Yountville resident. Anyway, one of our last topic of discussion was unhoused people and homeless people, and the group had a lot of concern about that issue. And it occurred to me, does Yountville ever, do you have any interactions with unhoused people or homeless people in Yountville? I know you haven't been the station sergeant for that long. I was just curious.
Yes, we do. So not probably not to the level that cities further south where there's more services are having, like Napa. But we do, the bus service runs up here, and so we occasionally get unhoused people in town. So the answer is,
do you refer them to social services?
Yes.
Or just
So
help
it really depends on the circumstances. I mean, as someone walking around town, not causing any sort of problems, committing no crime, generally, no, we're not even gonna contact that person.
So there need to be some behavior or something that would prompt you to.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And
I shouldn't say 100% of the time. We may contact somebody and say, hey, just so you, and again, it depends on time of day. We have no locations for unhoused people to sleep in Yountville overnight. The parks are no overnight camping. We do have so in that if we're getting towards the end of the day, when we know there's going to be no bus services, there's no way to get to a place to sleep short of a long walk, we would probably contact a person and say, hey, here's just so you know, here's the options, and if you'd like a ride, we'll give you a ride.
Well, that's good. I'm happy that Yountville takes as compassionate approach as we can given the circumstances. And then I just wanted to say, I like your crime tips. I moved my bicycles out of the front of my house after the last meeting, so who knows? Thank you.
Councilmember McKee-Can.
I have a question. It seems there used to be a log that was in the sun of some of the smaller crimes or incidents that happened here, and people could get tips if there was like a carport burglary or an incident going on. Short of that now, knowing that I shouldn't get news from next door, but I sometimes do, how would neighbors find out if there was an outdoor, carport robbery or a bike that was stolen? I mean, we hear about them in the quarterly reports, but There was something on Nextdoor where a lady said her carpet was robbed, and then another gentleman, a neighbor in Rancho, said I had a window like crowbarred open a few months ago, and we were all like, "What?
Yeah.
Why don't we know this so we can
So the
tune it up?"
the crowbar. This is the first time hearing about that. So that.
Said he reported it, so there you go.
The other incident, I know it occurred. I know it was reported to us. Currently, be honest, I don't know that we would put that out short of the quarterly report.
Yeah, that just,
I did talk to I had discussions with the Sun about that, but I think part of the problem with the like a regular crime log is it's often going to be very empty and
which we thank you for, but a lot of neighbors were like, "We need to know that."
And it's just something I think maybe
our
we
doors
could probably work with Hillary a little closer and get information put out that way.
So if we can put our heads together, just everybody should have their ears open and their doors locked, but we get feeling really secure here, and we're not as...
Yeah, you know what, I think probably we become a little dependent ourselves on Nextdoor being the spreader sometimes of that information, because it does seem to spread information.
And not everybody's on it. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming. Great.
Thank you.
Good to know you're in town, driving up and down our streets. We appreciate it.
We like the zeros.
And now, Napa County CAL FIRE.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. Mike Marcucci, your Town Fire Chief, as well as the County Fire Chief. And today, before we get going with our quarterly report, I had just a couple of announcements and a little bit of information for you. But first, I want to point out to Sergeant Malat, thank you for pointing out the adopt a firefighter or police law enforcement person. We'll make sure to address that and put that at the top of our priority list for this year. So. But with that, I would be remiss if I didn't speak to the events that we just had over the last few days with the storms and everything that just really pummeled the county, if you will, making national news. I just wanted to report that for the Napa County area, just on Sunday alone, we had about 130 incidents or calls for service. Normally in our command center in St. Helena dispatches about 68 calls a day for 6 counties. We did 400 that day. And 130 or so were just here in Napa County, including the town as well. And so it just goes to prove that the town, like the other areas of this county, is susceptible to not only fire but also weather phenomenons, as well, as you are all well aware. So, so with that, your fire station across the highway was very, very busy that day, as you can imagine, not only in the town but in the surrounding areas of the greater Yountville area, as we covered trees down into structures, vehicles, power lines, you name it, things were happening at a pretty rapid pace, to the point where there were times where we had potentially 10 to 11 calls pending to wait for a fire engine to get dispatched. It was that busy. So it's one of the busier days we've had probably in our history of Napa County Fire. So, and I'm happy to take questions of that afterwards. One of the things that I'm truly honored to speak to you about today is, about a year ago I stood here and we had a discussion about the level of fire protection in your town. And we talked about return on investments and those things. There's some very hard decisions that this council bravely made, and I still give you kudos for making those decisions. But I want to present to you today the return on investment that we have so far. So one of the things we spoke about was providing a battalion chief that was going to be funded not only by the town but in coordination with the county and the Veterans Home, and we have that position now filled. We've been waiting for this meeting to come and basically make these introductions. And so the two gentlemen here, the first one is Battalion Chief J.C. Greenberg and Battalion Chief Ryan Isham. Chief Greenberg is the funded battalion chief by the county and the town and the Veterans Home. And then Chief Isham is the state-funded battalion chief, taking Russell West's place, who promoted to assistant chief in our unit. He's now working up at St. Helena. And the reason I wanted to bring both of them here today is This is the lion's share of what will be covering your town as far as the battalion chief goes. And I hope that you will see them out and about in town as much as you see the fire engine and the ladder truck driving around as well. Both are Napa County locals and natives. Multiple generations of their families have lived in Napa County. They know this county in and out. They have both worked at Yountville Station as well as many of the other fire stations in Napa County. So the wealth of knowledge and experience that they both bring, not only operationally from firefighting, but also institutional knowledge of Napa County as well as the town is priceless. And that's one of the things we're very fortunate. We can't look for that when we're doing our hiring, but we did have the fortune to be able to get both of these individuals into those positions as we continue to grow the Napa County Fire Department and, in essence, the town of Yountville. So I wanted to bring them here today. We will get the information to Hillary as far as phone numbers go and all the points of contact and everything. They can tell you what days of the week they work. I can't even keep up. But to their credit, on Sunday, Chief Greenberg was on duty and was coordinating the effort countywide as far as our response. And Chief Isham came in on his day off. He lives up in Soda Canyon. I think once you about a half an hour to get down off of Soda Canyon through the trees and everything else that were down, came in and left their homes to be able to come in and run that incident from our Napa station where we were coordinating the whole effort. So a true testament. You are very fortunate to have two high-quality individuals, not only covering your town, but the county in general. So I will step aside. Chief Greenberg will give the presentation for the quarterly report, and if there's any questions afterwards, we'll be right here. So,
Chief Marcucci, we would like to grab a picture really quick of you and the new battalion chiefs, if that's okay.
if you like, whatever you like.
All right, Jason will assist with that.
Okay. Yeah.
Welcome, you guys.
You can block my sign. It's okay. It's okay. It's all right.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for
And I
getting
will
through
ask
yesterday.
Chief Greenberg if you could use the clicker for your presentation. That would help as I manage the Zoom display.
I can do that.
Thank
That
you.
sounds good. Well, thank you, everyone, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. It is truly welcoming to be back home here, and for the 24 years that I've been with CAL FIRE, and 5 of those years was actually over here at the station across the way, and to come back here in this position to lead the troops and be a part of this town is truly remarkable. So definitely look forward to the time here. So,
Welcome home.
thank you. We'll start off with our first slide here. Maybe I'll use the clicker.
How's that?
Is that you?
That was
Okay.
me.
Yeah, you may have to use it there. Just getting orientated with the graphs here for the different calls of service that we report on here. We'll be referring to the one on the left there, and that shows the diverse calls that are tallied throughout the town of Yountville itself. So that's the one in purple, the county, the darker blue, and then the teal green is the veterans home, and then there's a small sliver up there that shows the mutual aid calls that we respond in with the city of Napa as well. So you'll see for the fourth quarter here that we did have 97 calls here in the town of Yountville itself, and then we're going to use that as a comparison chart to the top right up there. For the same quarter last year. So as a compare and contrast, everything was pretty much in line. There wasn't any major spikes, a slight decrease here in town. But as far as relative calls for service, types of calls, the numbers there do remain about what we do expect. And then the bottom chart right there is a 5-year average that we do track just so we can look for trends throughout the different response areas here in town itself. And we'll go to the next slide. Looking at the town of Yountville calls itself, right here we actually divide out the different types of calls, and the largest chunk there in purple, by no surprise, is our biggest one, and that's calls for service for medical aids, and that continues to be up there in the 60-70 percentile of the calls that the engine and truck do run here in town. Public assist was sitting at 11%. Traffic collision, so this is outside of the town areas that we do log for this report at 3%. No vehicle fires, alarm soundings right around 20%, and there were not any structure fires or vegetation fires here in the town over the past quarter.
What is an alarm sounding exactly?
Oh, sure. So all of the commercial buildings or hotel occupancies have fire alarm systems in there. And it's often, I mean, throughout the industry in the fire departments, they do have faulty sensors that do go off, but we're still responding there as if it's a fire, and so those are calls that we log in there as fire alarm soundings. On this next chart right here is just a comparison of the types of calls and numbers that we run across the way up into the veterans home. So with that area population up there, most all the calls, 94% of them are for medical aids, helping out those vets and getting services, working with AMR to get them transported to the care that they need. The other calls up there were the public assist, one small traffic collision, the fire alarm soundings, and then one small miscellaneous fire, but nothing of any substantial. Next slide. So the big thing that we've been working on over the last quarter, and actually as we're speaking today, is training. So we have some new folks that have made it over to our stations, 2 new engineers this last quarter. We did a huge focus on structural firefighting, and in particular what you're looking up here is actually ventilation. So venting the roof, allowing all the heat and gases to come out while we have interior hose lines going inside. And the opportunity for having donated buildings in this county has been remarkable. And to take advantage of that, give them real life scenarios, training, cutting on real roofs is invaluable. And so we've been fortunate. So we had the one on the south end of Solano Avenue. And then we actually just were working with the city of Napa with our partners at the public health building that's been going over through a demolition. So the engines and trucks have been working there, multi-company drills with neighboring agencies, and it's been a real good experience for them. That's just getting them brought up to speed in their new positions. So, and next slide. More of the training that we do, we'll start over in the bottom left. Vehicle extrications.
Sorry about that. A little zoom.
Perfect. So the vehicle extrication, so we get donated cars through some of the tow yards. We bring them out to our training grounds. We use our extrication tools, commonly referred as a Jaws of Life. We use the Homatro brand, but they open up and peel the cars apart, cut off the roofs to make access to the patients. And every different type of vehicle out there has different either complications, types of metals, hazards, and especially when you go into the electric vehicle world, different areas of sensors where you don't want to cut. So every vehicle is unique that's on the roadway. So our folks, when they respond to these incidents, it's very important that you have to read the anatomy of the vehicle, see how it's compromised. How can you make a cut safely? How do you make access to these victims? So that's what you see right there in the bottom left. And on the right-hand side, this is truck 12 actually practicing what we call a static pick. And we can use the aerial ladder truck with the rope rescue systems and actually make access to victims in remote areas and lift them up and put them over to the areas if there's hazards or waterways. And the trucks had to use this before in flooding areas where cars had went into waterways and we couldn't make access to them and they were on top. And we could use this system that you're looking at right here and actually move the aerial over, lower it down, and put them into place and then transport them across the waterway. So more of a high-risk, low-frequency type of evolution, but when we do need it, these guys do train on it quite a bit so they can be proficient. So, yeah, next slide. So this is something we wanted to highlight this quarter. So I know while we weren't out adopting pets and trying to win #1, we were actually at vehicle accidents, helping the public on this, but we'll try better for #1 next year. So while there wasn't any vehicle accidents in the actual town itself, I think it's real important because as all the guests and tourists that come here and the people that live here, the vehicle accidents have gone up quite a bit. And I know we've only marked on 3 for this quarter, but they've been very severe. And it's high speed, it's people, traffic, distractions. But what you see right here is what our firefighters show up to help these people out. And they're trapped in there, and we're doing that extrication. We'll talk about it probably again in next quarter, but just because it's a recent event just south of California on 29, just a few weeks ago, we had 7 patients on the roadway there We blocked it off completely. It's what we call a MCI, multi-casualty incident. That's kind of some language changes in the EMS world that is a part of our operation, that we bring in more ambulances. We actually had the CHP helicopter H-30 land right there on the highway because one of the patients needed help into a hospital right away. So we were able to make all that happen on that incident. So I think just being cognizant of what the dangers are on the roadway and what we're seeing, even crossing over Highway 29 head on, are some of these recent events that, so whether you're driving north or south and it's a divided highway but no barrier, that's what we're running into, and just be aware out there. So, next slide. Structure fires. So we didn't report any structure fires in the town itself, but some of the events that came up this last quarter to note was on the outskirts of Yountville. So the first one that we had, which isn't pictured here, was up off of Manley Lane. And that was a fully involved structure fire in the middle of the night that went undetected. There wasn't any occupants, and once a passerby went and reported it, it was fully involved, and you'll see the chimney still standing there today next to the water tank as you drive by. But the crews under those conditions, the engines and trucks, myself there as well, we were able to save that historical water tank, and the flames were 80 to 100 feet high by the time we got there. So the radiant heat that can get the adjacent structures on there, the guys did a great job on protecting that as well. And then the one you see pictured here was south of town on the lower part of Dry Creek area. The house right there that you're looking at is roughly a mini mansion, 4,500 square foot home that up a long driveway. So when we, on the fire department side, we're fortunate in town here, we have fire hydrants to our availability. When we start going into some of the county areas, those water sources aren't available as you drive the streets here. So we're bringing water to those fires with water tenders or trucks, anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 gallons. Some residents have the plastic portable tanks there that the code requires, but those are only about 2,500 gallons. But this is one of those structures that was well involved when we got there under the house, and just the large square footage. But somewhere right around 55 firefighters were there during that event, able to salvage the contents out of the building as well, and reduce it from burning the whole thing. So it just shows you that the strength in numbers that it takes for these multiple incidents, and if we have an incident here in town, that we have those resources that we can bring and surge in for that type of help as well. So, but very unfortunate of that event. Next slide. And then we move into Christmas, and so Santa needed a ride for the tree lighting, and we gave him two options. In the back seat or on the back of a truck, and he chose to go with the firefighters on this tour for the tree lighting. So, but no, another great event. This is something that I remember back in 2000 to 2012 being here at the Yountville station, that just the town itself as it comes together. I mean, the tourists, they remember this and they travel just for this event. The community comes together, and so this is something that we're always proud to be a part of all the tree lighting and events. And if you move over to the next slide, our station has a lot of pride in putting up Christmas lights.
Great.
Did it? Yeah.
It looked over the top great.
So they spent several afternoons and evenings after everything else is taken care of and got everything decorated. Kids were stopping by. We had an open house invite, and just for them to be able to come and sit on the apparatus, see the lights, and it was definitely a good event.
It almost looked like you were Santa's village for the wine train. I mean, it was so lit up. So.
The wine train did have some help in donating some extra lights, and made a stop as they went by. A couple other things wrapping up on my report. October was our fire prevention month, so that was a real big focus on fire extinguishers. So we were able to do a couple demonstrations and trainings here in town, along with the previous months of helping out the wineries doing that. Some other events coming up that I want to mention is we just got the date for March 6th for the community town barbecues, and will be there helping, cooking, and putting on some kind of safety training. So it'll rotate through hands-only CPR, probably more of an extinguisher prop. We have some ideas for the kids during the later spring to summer months where we can set up some obstacle courses and kind of engage them in some of the things that we do. So we're definitely looking forward to that as well. And then I'll end here with our safety message. So as we are still in these winter months, there's going to be cold mornings, cold evenings. One of the things that we really watch out and want to work with the public on is your heating devices in your home. So whether it's a gas heater, electric heater, wood stoves, there's maintenance that goes along with those. So whether it's cleaning a chimney or changing out your filters, but those are all components that are leading causes of fires during these months, and making sure you know how to operate them, know where to shut off the breakers. So if something doesn't smell right, look right, kill the power, call 911, we'll come out, we'll look at it, and we'll help secure it from there. So thank you, and I look forward to working with everyone in the future.
Great. Thank you very much. So let's get some, I'm sure we'll have some council comments or questions. Vice Mayor Tripp.
Actually, and I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, or it might be very cheap. I was just interested how you plan for an event like this recent storm in terms of person power, because you never know exactly what's going to happen. Are people on call, or do people, because you need more, I'm guessing you staff up, right? Or that number of calls.
So one of the advantages that the town has is it belongs to a regional fire service delivery model with Napa County Fire Department. And so through that, we have our 5 career engines a day at Napa, Greenwood Ranch, and Yountville, and St. Helena. But we also have our volunteer stations, and there's 14 of them. So when we have these calls, thankfully, the timing was perfect on a weekend. Many of the volunteers were home. We were able to staff up. Each one of the volunteer stations were able to staff an additional fire engine, which gave us somewhere in the neighborhood of about 9 to 10 more pieces of equipment. But in addition to that, we also had a shift going off duty at our career stations, and we had a shift coming on duty. And so we were able to hold over the folks that were supposed to be going home in addition to the folks that were coming on duty. But we do normally, when we see these storms coming, we can do things such as pre-positioning of resources. We did have a couple of captains staff a pickup truck to be able to just go out with a chainsaw. So it didn't tie up a fire engine. It just ties up a pickup truck with some cones so we can secure, make it safe, open the road if we can, instead of tying up a fire engine onto that. So, but with everything we had, we were pretty close to being overwhelmed. And so, but it is nice to be able in a regional delivery model to be able to expand. The city of Napa was extremely swamped as well. So we were running into Napa. They were running into the county. The same thing with Calistoga and St. Helena. It was truly all hands on deck. But when we see those events come, unlike a fire that we, unless it's a red flag warning, we saw days in advance that storm was coming. So we did staff up a little bit, but truly a tribute to not only your career firefighters, but your volunteers as well here in Napa County. So.
Yeah, that's very helpful, especially I didn't realize we had that many volunteers who could actually man equipment, or not we, but the county. Mm-hmm. I also wanted to thank you for your comments about the return on investment, because it was just about this time last year we were talking about that, and the more I learn about our fire service, the more I come to understand it is a really good investment. So, but thank you for acknowledging that the town does have to make an investment. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for that information, too. I was talking to the mayor in Calistoga, and they said, with all their events, too, dispatch was kind of backed up 10 or 11 calls. It was a very busy day for everybody. So thank you very much. I always, it was pretty quiet without the power on around, but, we heard all the trucks and the sirens going by, so we knew you guys were very busy. So thank you for keeping us safe. Greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't see any more comments, so thank you very much. Thanks for these great quarterly reports. We really appreciate it. It tells us a lot so we can tell our community.
Very good.
And welcome to Station 12. All right. We do not have any public hearings tonight, and we have 2 administrative items. The first one is a town council discussion and direction to staff regarding our budget parameters. And I know you have a new title to me. You're always like Director King for Finance. So anyway,
Yes.
get us going with this. Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Town Council. Today we are presenting the Budget Parameters Staff Report, which serves as the official kickoff to the public meetings aspect of the budget process. Budget preparation has been underway for about 2 months now, as staff has been gearing up to propose the town's first biennial budget to the Town Council. So this means we will be proposing revenues and expenditures for 2 fiscal years rather than 1. These will be fiscal years 2024-2025 and 2025-2026. So for short, we'll just say 24-25 and 25-26. This approach will allow the council to focus more on strategic planning and goal setting next year, as we won't have such an intensive budget process. This staff report offers a glimpse into some key revenues and expenditures that will be included in the proposed budget, and I will provide an overview of that information in a moment. But first, next slide, please. We would like to talk about the budget workshop dates and hopefully make those official so we can go ahead and provide ample public notice for those meetings. We propose that budget workshop number 1 be held on Tuesday, April 16th at 10 a.m. here in the Town Council chambers, and that budget workshop number 2 be held on May 7th, also starting at 10 a.m., also here in the Town Council chambers. So hopefully those dates and times are agreeable.
Can I stop you there?
Yes.
Because I have flood control. They actually used to have the meetings at 1:30, so I have to race back here for our 3 o'clock meeting, so they moved them, but now they're at 9 o'clock, so it's going to be hard for me to race back by 10. Can we move it to maybe 10:30 that day? Would that be okay?
I think
All
that
right.
would work. Yeah,
All right.
I'll make
Great.
a note of that.
All right, wonderful, thanks.
That is, just to clarify, Mayor,
No, I just have a conflict on April 16th.
the 16th. Okay, thank you.
10:30 on the 16th, perfect.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Great. Okay. In the budget workshops, staff will provide more detail about the proposed budget at the departmental level. The workshops provide an opportunity for town council discussion and direction, as well as public comments and feedback from the community. Moving forward, next slide, please, to talk about the top 3 general fund revenues, which are transient occupancy tax, or TOT, sales tax, and property tax. So the preliminary estimate for TOT revenue for fiscal year 24-25 is $8.78 million. The estimated TOT revenue for fiscal year 25-26 assumes a 3% increase over the prior year for just over $9 million. TOT is the largest source of revenue in the general fund. Also, sales tax revenue projections were provided by HGL, the town's sales tax auditing firm. We meet with them quarterly to review sales tax collections and trends, and it is likely we will receive revised revenue projections in April. The third main source of revenue in the general fund is property tax. The state of California caps the growth in property tax at 2%, and the revenue estimates included in this report for both years assume an increase of the full 2%. For fiscal year 24-25, that's a 2% over last fiscal year actuals. There is quite a lag in property tax collections. So as we move further along in the budget process, we'll have a better picture of what the current fiscal year collections will be, and so we may be able to revise these up a bit. Next slide, please. Key expenditures shown in the budget parameters report include fire and emergency medical services, law enforcement services, both provided via contract with Napa County, and the annual CalPERS unfunded actuarially accrued liability, or UAAL, payment. The 2-year fire and emergency medical services approved this time last year sets the cost for fiscal year 24-25 at $1.79 million. The estimate of $1.88 million in fiscal year 25-26 assumes a 5% increase in cost. So as the current agreement expires in June of 2025, this time next year, staff will begin working with Napa County to renew that agreement once again. The town manager is currently working with Napa County to renew the agreement for law enforcement services that expires this June. The estimated costs that have been provided to staff show a total amount of $1.37 million for fiscal year 24-25, which is an increase of 8.1% over the current 8.1%, over the current year costs. And the total amount of $1.49 million for fiscal year 25-26 is an increase of 8.5% over the 24-25 costs. Staff will be bringing this agreement to Town Council for review at a future meeting, likely in April. The amount of the annual UAAL payment to CalPERS for both upcoming fiscal years was provided in the most recent CalPERS valuation report that the town received in August of 2023. It is important to note that the amount for the fiscal year 25-26 UAAL is only an estimate, and CalPERS will provide an updated amount in the next valuation report that the town expects to receive in August of 2024. Next slide, please. There are a few other variables that will be considered when producing the proposed budget, such as health insurance rates. The town is assuming a 10% increase to rates for both fiscal years. Employee cost of living adjustments, or COLA, as included in the approved MOU. The COLA for fiscal year 24-25 will be based on the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, increase for the month of January, which should be released next week, I believe, around February 15th. Staff is assuming the maximum increase to salaries of 5%, as stated in the MOU, for fiscal year 25-26 until the next January CPI is released in February of 2025. Liability, workers' compensation, and property insurance premiums are typically provided by CIRA, who manages the town's risk pool, and we hope to receive preliminary estimates of these costs in March. Main budget objectives include, of course, presenting a balanced budget where proposed expenditures are covered by estimated revenues, continuing to utilize the OPEB trust for retiree medical premiums and the PRSP, or Pension Rate Stabilization Plan trust, to pay the July UAAL payment to CalPERS. Staff is also recommending that contributions to the trust be included in the budget to continue the practice of pre-funding these obligations. For the OPEB trust, we are suggesting a contribution of 2% of budgeted salaries, which will be around $91,000. For the PRSP trust, we are suggesting a contribution of 5% of budgeted salaries, which will be around $226,000. Side note regarding the OPEB liability, we are currently working with our consultants to develop an updated valuation as of January 2024, so this report should be available by June. Not listed in the staff report, but something that we have been recently talking about is recommending revisions to the current reserve targets. At this point in the current fiscal year, the emergency reserve is meeting the target of 20% of estimated general fund expenditures and exceeding it by about $529,000. Similarly, the unanticipated tourism revenue deficits reserve is meeting the target of 25% of estimated TOT revenue and exceeding it as well by about $845,000. We will be bringing a staff report to the Town Council at the March 5th meeting to discuss some potential changes to the fund balance policy. Another important objective is the Capital Improvement Program, or CIP. Deputy Public Works Director Rosalba Ramirez is leading the development of the proposed 2-year and 5-year CIP with the purpose of ensuring the timely repair and replacement of aging infrastructure while also balancing and delivering the community's priorities as set by the Town Council. Lastly, we will also begin working on finding ways to incorporate Town Council priorities that were identified at last week's goal-setting workshop into the proposed biennial budget. Next slide, please. And we are available for questions.
So I have one question about our OPEB trust. I know we're at 98%. And can you just kind of explain to all of us why it's very careful for us to manage that without going over the 100%?
Yes. It is an evolving funded percentage. So the 98% was as of June 2023. So as we have staff turnover, as we have people retire, as we have new staff come on, and the trust has activity and we see if it has gains or losses, this is a funded status that's continually changing. So our best estimate is, the low percentage of about 2%, to continue to try and reach that actuarially determined contribution that keeps us at the pre-funding level. And you are correct, Mayor, it is a fine balance between keeping us in that pre-funded status and trying not to be overfunded. So we're hoping that 2% will keep us pre-funding and not put us over the 100% funded. But I think that will not manifest until we get that valuation report as of January 2024, which again will be wrapped up probably around May or June of this year.
So what happens if we have a spectacular investment year, which has happened in the past, and it goes over the funding? What are the consequences?
Probably we could skip a year of funding.
Okay.
We did postpone contributions for a year or two, I believe, during COVID, and our actuaries did say that since we have such a great history of pre-funding, that skipping a year or two, especially at our funded status, should be acceptable.
It's a fabulous problem to have, isn't it?
It is.
Yes, I'm very happy with that. And just for clarity in terms of the COLA, so when the January CPIs comes out, it's January 2023 to January 2024. They do an average
Correct.
of those. And so that's why you use that one.
Yes.
And so when do you anticipate discussion maybe coming back for reserve targets? Will that be before we approve the budget in June? We're going to have that discussion?
Yes, we'll have a staff report presented at the March 5th meeting,
March 5th,
where
okay.
we will present a revised fund balance policy for the town council to review, and we will summarize the changes that have happened and request town council feedback and direction.
All right, great. So again, thanks for your first time through the 2-year budget. I think it's going to. We can kind of see the assumptions you're making, and we can keep our fingers crossed as well as you can. But it's important for us to see that you'll be getting these kind of updates, and it's not just like really do it once and hope for the best at the end of 2 years. So thank you very much to you and all your staff for doing that. I think it's great.
I wanted to add one thing. Pardon me, Mayor. First of all, thank you, Celia. Great job, and her and Kyle have been working hard to get to this point. Someone once explained to me, like when we start budget season, they call it alphabet soup because it's OPEB and COLA and all these acronyms that you start to have to learn how to speak budget. And I know some of the things I've been working with Celia and Kyle is how to simplify a really complicated process. And we're working towards that. One thing I will mention to you, because we use reserve and fund balance, interchangeably, that they are in essence the same thing, but we'll kind of get into defining the difference between a fund balance and a reserve. And that will come forward March 5th. And then the last thing I just want to point out, which hopefully takes away some of the the fear or concerns about a biennial budget is, we're always budgeting, but we are required, by what we call the mid-years to come back at least every 6 months and adjust our assumptions and our variables. So that will continue to happen. Instead of next year, because we will refocus back on strategic planning and goal setting after, the election, we will still come back with, what we won't call it the mid-year because it'll actually be the year end, but that will be another opportunity. It just won't require all the budget workshops, all the discussions leading up to that. It'll be a much more streamlined process. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that budgeting never stops. We'll continue these conversations. And then obviously, we all saw how we can sort of turn on a dime when things like COVID or unexpected shocks come to the system. And then we're prepared to come to you at the next meeting and make revisions or adjustments based on those types of shocks. But I think this will, in long term, as we get into a sequencing of a let's call it a goal setting year and a budgeting year, it'll make, I think, things flow better. And the ultimate goal is for us to achieve your goals, the community's goals, which we of course dealt with last week, and I think that's been very helpful for me. And I know as Celia and I are getting to know each other, working together through the budget, I think these things are starting to come together. So again, thank you, and we're still here for more questions if you have them.
And we do. Vice Mayor Tripp.
Thank you, Celia. And your staff report was really excellent, I thought, in addition to the slides. So thank you. I had two questions. I am very interested in the reserve policies because of the importance to the town's resilience to be neither putting too much money in the bank or too little. And we had that gentleman whose name I can't remember from the GFOA. I think
Shane Kavanaugh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Who raised some really interesting questions about matching up the potential for disasters based on what's actually happened with, which I thought was a great. So my question is, will he, in March, will he be involved in looking at the reserve policies? Because he had some really good ideas about where we might either be duplicating reserves or perhaps should look at different issues. So that would be my first question.
Well, thank you, Vice Mayor. That's a great question. And he will be involved in the fact that he has developed the revised policy, taking what we heard and the feedback from the December 5th meeting when he was here, as far as trying to reduce the amount of buckets and trying to maybe change the target levels. He has crafted that report. So between he and I, we hope to have a fund balance policy that is much more clear and much more aligned with town council goals.
And will he be able to come in March at the meeting, or what's your thinking on that?
I think the town manager and I were hoping to cover that, but
Okay,
if it is a town council request, we can.
No, not particularly, but I was more interested. Okay, so that was my first question. And then my other question was, I was very closely involved with managing the Workers' Comp Trust for the university system, and there were tax and audit consequences of getting overfunded. And in fact, we had to start reducing rates and giving money back to campuses and medical centers. And this may not, since you're not a tax expert or an audit, I mean, you're an expert, but not necessarily in taxes. Are there consequences if we were to continue contributing and get overfunded? Because on the theory, I think the reason there's rules about that is you can't just keep socking money away if it's not needed for the projected liability. So I wanted to ask you about that.
Just to clarify, are you again referring to the OPEB?
Right. So
trust?
If we're at 98% funded now, and I think we have a confidence level that's pretty high. I think we're at like 70% confidence level. So that says we're pretty sure we are putting in the right amount of money. 7 times out of 10, we will have enough money. What if we were to continue it at 2% and it turned out we'd had good investment returns and the liability, for whatever reason, had not drastically increased, would we continue to put in the 2%? And are there any ramifications if we began to overfund it? That's my, and I know some of this information won't be known till later in the year. But it's just kind of a general question.
It is a great question, and I will definitely reach out to McLeod and Watts, who is our actuary, who will be formulating this report for us for the valuation, and see if they have any input on that. I can also ask our auditors, our town auditors.
And then my only final question is, as I'm sitting up here, I'm thinking, okay, so Celia works all year, summer, to get spring, summer to get the audit done, and then she starts in on the budget. So I don't know when your quiet time is, but thank you for all the hard work, because you have quite a cycle to manage. So thank you.
Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Administrative Director King and Financial Analyst Batista and all other staff that worked on your first biennial budget report. As usual, it's an excellent report. I don't have any questions, but I know when I have, you respond promptly and thoroughly. So thank you again. And also want to thank the Vice Mayor for her good questions on the budget and the percentages. I look forward to our future budget meetings in the next 3 or 4 months. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any public comment on our budget parameters that we're talking about? Seeing none, that's thank you very much, and looking forward to our next meeting on this. So one more, we're getting there, Celia.
Yes.
We're getting there. All right,
See you at the
thanks for
budget
all
workshop.
your help on that. So with that, we are moving on to item 11B. We are going to discuss and adopt our Yountville vision statement and core elements. Next.
Well, that is the hope. Thank you. I am, as you know, Brad Ralston, your town manager. First of all, we have received a lot of kudos from the goal setting workshop from last week. I generally think it went, and as we talked about, it was a process that started last year, and I think it was a good culminating event, and staff has looked at all the dots, and we're working through the process, and obviously now we're starting the budget. So I think I just want to thank everyone for one, showing up, but just I guess committing to the process and making sure that we are doing things in a both a thoughtful and responsible way. So with that, I thought because there was just a few tweaks to the vision statement and what we were calling the core values, we thought we'd bring that back so we can hopefully put that to bed and then move forward into more of the obviously the substantive stuff that follows this. So you read in the staff report, we changed a few words, including renaming core values, core elements. I think that that's to me a better term, because I agreed with a member of the public. Those weren't really values. They're more of elements of how do we achieve our vision. And then there was a few words that were changed, which were outlined in the staff report. We went with shared community. I felt like there was general consensus. I know there was a lot of discussion on that, and then we integrated some of the other words into the descriptions. So happy to continue to take comments and wordsmith, and but hoping we can get a motion and adopt this and move forward. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to try to answer.
Okay, Councilmember Reeves.
I think as I was reading this, getting ready for the meeting, I wrote down on my notes just bravo with 2 exclamation points. I really appreciate the amount of time that was spent trying to recraft what wasn't really totally broken, but what did not reflect what I think is the more authentic, resident-centered view and vision. So I feel like this language more represents what I was hearing from the community and what I feel is much more authentic language that accomplishes that vision. So thank you very much, and I'm ready to make a motion.
Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate, and I support Councilmember Reeves' comments. I want to thank town manager and council and community members that made just some, I think, thoughtful changes to this vision statement. I think adding a shared community is and talking about the voice of the residents and the businesses all as a shared community is a definite positive addition to this statement. So thank you. Thank you for all the input and for the good work. And thank you for the work you did earlier this earlier on the 30th at the strategic planning meeting. I'm happy to second a motion if a motion's made.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember McKee-Kent.
Thank you. I just want to publicly thank the members of the public that did contribute to their thoughts and thinking on these elements. It was their voice through the surveys that helped us kind of polish this, if you will. I think through Brad's leadership and staff's input, it was a good document, but adding the public voice through the surveys was, they were exceptional. And even our facilitator made the comment that we have such a great community and that he hadn't quite seen as intelligent feedback and thoughtful feedback. So together, we all make this a win-win. I'm proud to sign it.
And, usually vision statements I kind of think are painful, but this wasn't. It was actually very interesting, very collaborative, and we went through a few iterations, but I think that you're going to find that everybody is very supportive of this, and thank you very much to the staff. Without, the staff and everything the staff does, we couldn't say all these wonderful things about that we did say in our vision statement. So we just can't thank you enough. So really appreciate that as well. So I think we're going to have a motion.
Well, I move approval of our presented new vision statement and strategic plan with core elements. And
Councilmember Knight, would you like to make that official with your second?
And I'm happy to second it. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, and so we need a roll call.
Just make sure there's no public comment.
Oh,
I have
think I-
Gary in my ear. I don't know if you said.
I think I asked that before.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
But I can ask it again. We have no takers, but thanks for being here nonetheless. So with that, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Reeves?
yes,
Councilmember McKee-Kent?
Yes.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tripp? Yes. Mayor Mueller?
Yes, thank you. So,
All right, thank you very much. And we are going to sign this. I don't know, Hillary, if you were able to, but when the meeting's done, we'll all sign it. And then next time we have a meeting in here, you'll see a replacement to what's on the wall over there. So, if you can just hold over it, or you can make sure are we ready to sign?
Yeah, so I've strategized that they're going to sign this document, but we're going to get it published on some nice glossy cardstock paper.
Oh, nice.
Just because it's such a laborious effort here, and we're sharing that way.
All right, great.
all right. Great. So, even though we don't have any staff informational reports listed, I think we have a last-minute entry into that category.
Yeah, we do. Obviously, I wanted to update everyone on the storm and the power outage. And thankfully, I spoke to Mark Van Gorder this morning, and he was willing to come. So he will say whatever he can say from PGA's perspective. Let me say a few things, and I want to start by thanking all of the staff, but I generally think the fact that we were talking about trees and power instead of flooding is a testament to John and his staff, clearing out the flood channels and doing all the work. Irene's always got the plans, and I think we're working, just so you know, with our new our new arborist to look at, obviously there was a number of trees that fell. We didn't get it as bad as most communities, but there are issues that we need to address. So we're going to have our arborist come and evaluate, trees that might be considered dangerous, and we'll be prepared better next time. But I think that's always, as you know, a balance between protecting the trees and I guess dealing with safety issues. So. And then Celia, as you know, pays the bills, makes sure that the lights are turned on when the power's on. But we were thankful to have both backup generation here and at the community center. So we were able to, kind of have somewhat business as usual. I think Jason is always stepping up, but I do want to point out, he provides a class to the community and tech. What did I write down? I wrote down, I guess the Where did I put it? You gave me some information. But, generally giving residents advice about technology and what have you. And what do you call your classes? I don't even... I'm sorry for putting you on the spot.
The class is Introduction to Modern Technology.
Okay, so there you go. Sounds like a 101 thing. But what we're going to do, or he's going to do this month, which will be actually on February 29th, is to talk about tech resiliency. Because that was clearly one of the issues that came up. And so I wanted to leave the charging station for last and thank Sam specifically and all of her staff. Because it sort of, for those of you that were there, it sort of turned into a little coffee shop party over in the gym, and it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we kept finding resources to allow everyone to plug in. But Jason will sort of help people that struggle with a lot of the issues that come up, like whether you're draining your battery or whether you're not realizing that you need power to have Wi-Fi, all of these things that you really don't think too much about until we suffer through what we had to deal with for a little more than a full day. So I think that was a lot of lessons learned, and I think that we're talking as a staff about what we can do differently. I did want to give Hillary a quick opportunity to talk about some of the communication stuff. I felt like, as usual, we're always connected, and whenever I text her, she's boom, boom, boom right back, and so that alone is critical. But you wanted to mention maybe a few things that you saw where we could improve in the future in communications.
Yeah, definitely. I think every one of these...
Can you use your microphone?
A little bit closer. Every one of these events, incidents, is an opportunity for us to look for process improvement. The town uses the FEMA NIMS system, which is the National Incident Management System, in terms of our strategic communications plan. But when we see the feedback from the community about not enough updates, even if there isn't an update, I think it's an opportunity to reflect and pivot a bit and say, well, what if we set a communication goal of getting information out at set times? Say an 8:30 update, 12:30 update, 4:30 update, and again 8:30 update PM. And even if there's nothing to share, and that will allow the community to have an expectation of when they're going to get information. And in this case, there weren't too many new updates during the time frame of the event, except for estimated restoration time changes. But at the same time, I think it provides a sense of comfort, transparency, and fosters trust if we're able to adhere to that type of communication strategy. So moving forward, we'll do our best, and every situation is different, but that being the standard of how we'll deliver information, with the caveat that if new information is made available and the situation warrants sharing, we will definitely do that outside of those defined times. So that's been kind of my educational experience here, and happy to implement that.
Yeah, thank you, Hillary. I think that's definitely something we can look at next time. So with all of that, I don't know if you have any questions for staff or anything you want to say. I wanted Mark to come up, and we could do that now, and you can.
Yeah, let's have Mark come up, and then we can.
Okay. Thank you for being here, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Mark, thanks very much for coming. I know you've been pretty busy, so
well, thankfully, I guess I consider myself lucky. I am not one of the crew that is working 12-hour shifts a day in the rain, in the cold, in the night, and all that stuff. So I just want to give a shout out to our crews who are out there right now working. And I was with them Sunday night. The wind was just too severe for them to work. Anyway, I'm here to really answer your questions or provide an overview. If you'd like me to just give you a quick summary.
Yeah, that would be great.
And then I'm happy to answer some questions if you have them. But what I'll say is this. We saw the storm coming in, and when I say we, PG&E has meteorologists, and we were watching governor's statements, Cal OES. The governor had launched, I think, 8,300 roughly boots on the ground, in advance of this storm. But mostly we expected, and meteorology expected, the storm was going to be sort of central coast down south. And we've all watched, and anybody who's watching today, They're still getting hammered as we speak. They're having intense storms roll through. San Diego just had a tornado. It was an unimaginable storm from San Diego that then, which probably is the part of the surprise, that went up to Eureka. That's the breadth of the storm. We also weren't expecting, I don't think I'd seen anybody expecting or projecting that we would have in Marin County 102 mile-an-hour winds. Napa, and I've been sending this information out. If anyone here hasn't seen it, I've been trying to, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I was sending, be prepared, we're expecting storms. But in our area, so Marin County, Napa, Sonoma, and North Lake, we were expecting what we would call a Category 3 storm, moderate. We were prepared. We had crews staged, ready for that. What we weren't prepared for is what we got is what we would call a Category 5 storm. So again, Napa County, and I've sent the maps out. I have, National Weather Service has a terrific tool where you can look at the dates and times and such and show the gusts. And where I live at night, I thought, oh my gosh, this, without causing anybody any PTSD, I was listening to the wind roar through the trees around our home, and quite frankly, thank goodness it was the winter time, but it reminded me of 2017. Yeah. And it scared me. It was very, very bad. There are hundreds and likely thousands of trees down, and our crews are simply overwhelmed with the amount of restoration that they have to perform. And part of the problem is because the storm was from Eureka down to San Diego, and our service territory is basically Eureka down to Santa Barbara. And then you have Southern California, Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric. In a storm that maybe impacts one county or two counties or the coast versus the Sierras or something, we can get resources from those other counties. Counties to the east of us can come west, or sometimes we'll go that way, or they'll come south to north. We will share resources. Because nearly every county in our area got hit, we don't have additional resources. So what we did is we were requesting out-of-state resources to come in and support our efforts. That said, it can take a couple of days for them to gather their crews and their gear and the equipment and whatnot. So that's the storm impacts. We are thankfully quickly restoring outages, and we prioritize public facilities. I'm still, if you saw me on my phone over here, I'm not checking random texts, but the County Office of Emergency Services is trying to get power up to Lake Berryessa, and Napa County Office of Education is trying to get generation. And they did open, for anyone who may need it and may be watching or listening, the county, in support with, in coordination with PG&E, opened up the a community resource center at Crosswalk Church, which is off of 1st Street and 29 there, just across from the outlets. I'll stop there for now, as that's a general overview of what we've been through and what we're doing, and the crews are going to continue to restore power. But you may have friends, I have good friends and family, who are still looking and seeing that their power is going to be out for another 2 days. And they live in an area, in downtown Napa, where their power lines are actually undergrounded. But there are different impacts happening, and the crews are going as fast as they can and restoring the greatest number of people first, and then they're going to be working into the single individual homes. But even the Napa Expo, I was down there this morning, and thank God, there's this huge 4-foot, diameter redwood tree that landed on top their administrative building. And thankfully, somehow, it didn't crash, it didn't destroy the whole thing. But it's everywhere.
Well, first, I just wanted to say it was really great. I was in close communication with the home administrator up at the vet's home. They just had very minimal power outages, like from 4 or 5 in the morning and maybe like an hour yesterday afternoon or something. So, that's probably our most vulnerable population up there. And they had some trees down and things like that. But it's really great that they weren't impacted very much at all. So,
and I don't know. I mean, my hope, my assumption is that they maybe have some generation
They only have a few. They don't really have a lot. Their power just didn't go out in the main dormitory buildings or anything like that. So they were very, very fortunate. So
I get, what I would say, I guess, if anything, and I'm going back a few years, as we all can do, right? And I just remember as a kid having to go for a couple days without power, and kerosene lamps and cooking with a fire stove and whatnot. And it's interesting to talk about the technology. We're so dependent. So many people have started after COVID working from home and having the power, and it's just a thing. But I can't help but think, looking ahead, that and with climate change and the things that we're all trying to prepare for, I hope we don't have more power outages due to storms like this. But I think it's important for people to be prepared for a day, 2 days, or even 3.
So I have another question that might be just totally outside of your wheelhouse. But so when the general electricity goes down, it was on for Comcast, which is generally how everybody gets their television here, and the internet. It didn't really go down for like 4 or 5 hours. So how does that, do you have any idea how that kind of works? What kind of backup Comcast has, or because it wasn't directly related to when our power went out?
Can I say something here on that?
Yeah.
I don't know how Comcast powers their facilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just, Xfinity and Comcast now are selling.
Can you speak in your mic so everybody can hear?
At least my internet provider is now pushing a battery system that will keep your internet and up for 4 hours. So it might be possible that's what you have, because it is dependent on electricity. So if you were able to use your internet for another 4 hours, then you might have that backup system and just not be aware of it. Because I think I'm going to get that backup system, because 4 hours, even though I hate paying larger cable bills, would be some help. But I just had 2 comments. One, you have a very difficult job, and so I want to thank you for coming today. And just in general, you approach this with such good humor, given everybody probably has their feelings about power interruptions and PG&E and whatnot. So I really appreciate that. And then I also think it's all relative. I read this morning in the Chronicle, 110,000 people in Sacramento still don't have power this morning. So that's pretty amazing to me. I mean, not amazing, but it puts our issues in perspective. I also totally agree with you about all of us, and this might be something we really want to think about in terms of our community grants and whatnot, to make sure we have the basic and obvious things: a good supply of batteries, a decent camping lantern, something to eat that doesn't require cooking, just basic stuff, good solid blankets, things like that. So that's something that's on us to prepare for. And then my final thought was, I also read about the enormous number of power poles that were down, and that it takes PG&E, and this makes sense to me, 12 hours to put a power pole back up. And that's no small thing, and a crew of people.
In a storm.
So, right. So none of us like this, of course, but I can actually understand why we found ourselves where we were, and I was very thankful that we got our power back, all things considered, pretty quickly. I mean, it was painful, but and we need to prepare better so that we have, half of our communities over 65. And, people just don't think about refreshing batteries, making sure you have camping lanterns, knowing where it all is, all that sort of stuff. So thank you, though. That's, most appreciated. And we're going to work on that, I think, being better prepared
and
in small ways.
If I could follow up on that, too, we send this messaging out, and sometimes I think we send it out so frequently it becomes maybe just background noise, and I need to do a better job to sort of lift it up and promote it. But we're constantly focusing on what we call our medical baseline customers. So those folks that have electric dependent needs, we want to get them as many resources as we can. And maybe in a town newsletter or something, it can be, really highlighted that, here's a place to go. You get discounts on your electricity. We can supply sometimes some very short-term batteries if people have oxygen or other things. We want to know about those people and have them in our system so that we can reach out and find out. But Yountville is uniquely situated, to your point. It's not up. St. Helena still has some significant outages. Western downtown Napa has a lot. If we pulled it up on the screen and looked, it looks like a colorful shotgun of outages absolutely everywhere. And it's going to take a long time for us to get those, but the crews are going as much as they can.
Councilmember McKee, questions?
So, obviously, the storm is a guessing game. You know it's coming, and last week's storm was going to be high winds too, and that was part of the problem. Is we say be ready for high winds, and then it doesn't materialize. Yeah. So when this one started hitting in the middle of the night, it was like, okay, the low pressure is there. Your office's communication was kind of guesswork like that too. I mean, as soon as the 4 p.m. Marker that we were all waiting for was, clicking by, then it was 6 a.m. And so it was a great, pleasant surprise to have it come on around 6 p.m. But simultaneously, people in Napa that got their power restored then had power outages. And my sister, for example, got a message saying it's going to be Friday the 9th. Mm-hmm. So, and even people here were hearing 10 p.m. on Friday. So we're all getting mixed messages. And do you feel that there's some room for improvement on your end? I mean, I know you can't foresee, it sounds like there were some equipment shortages, and then LA is needing equipment too. I mean, that's a huge job and a huge undertaking, but the communication, our community is looking for us to provide feedback, and we intentionally have to be a little vague because we're depending on you.
Yeah.
So it just is.
Yeah, I kind of appreciate having the CAL FIRE representatives here. Just using that as an example, that it was the most calls that they've had, I think they said in their history. Yeah. Something along those lines. And so similar to us, as I said, we got overwhelmed, still probably I would say are overwhelmed. The company is getting as much equipment and resources as they can and as much as possible. And in some of those situations where you're getting different times, so that's people, when is my power going to be restored? And what has to happen, and I'll try and make this really brief, but you can imagine if you had a water leak at your house or something, water's just a broken pipe. You call the plumber, and it takes an hour for the plumber to come out, from wherever they're at to get there. They take a look. I got to go buy a new pipe. I've got to get whatever it is to get back. Shut the power off, and now you have no water, and you're waiting. And the plumber comes back and says, "This is going to take me 3 hours." The important part is that the plumber is there to see what the problem is, to determine what equipment needs there are, and based on their experience, how long they think it's going to take. Mm-hmm. And it's an estimate. But until that person gets on site, right, it's a guessing game. So what we're doing and what may have happened is we are putting in what we call an estimated time of restoration that's automatically generated. And it will put it, 6 hours out, because on a normal, regular day, we should be able to have somebody out there and get the power back on it in 6 hours. Once the resources were completely depleted, those times are getting pushed out, and then they're getting pushed out because crews haven't come in to even assess it. Yeah. And then either it's just a transformer or a fuse or something that they can go up in the bucket truck and fix very quickly, or it might be a pole, because the trees have come down and they need the 12 hours for the pole. And in some cases, I've seen many pictures of trees taking down 3 or 4 poles. Mm-hmm. And that's in many locations, and they're hard to get to. They're remote areas. They're behind people's homes. We had that happen right here in Yountville 6 or 7 years ago, where they had the large crane have to come over. And those are the kinds of things that are just, who knows how long that's going to take. So people are stuck waiting, and you don't have the information, and frankly, sometimes we don't either. It's not a great answer. It's just a true answer.
Well, I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Reeves.
I don't really have a question. I kind of understand your position, and and what PG&E has to go through. That doesn't mean that I love to accept it, but one of the things that I thought was this was a teachable moment for our community is the value of the emergency preparedness workshops that we're holding, and the fact that you mentioned and also Council Member McKee Kent mentioned that we often get lulled into, oh, it didn't happen at 4 o'clock, it must be wrong. So I'm thinking we're not going to get much happening in our town, right? That's sort of the general way we like to project. It can't happen here, or it won't happen here. So I think the idea of being more prepared with what Vice Mayor Tripp was saying, that we ought to prioritize our emergency preparedness in several different sectors. What happens when you have an earthquake? What happens when you have a storm? What do you need in your toolbox to make it through all of those things? I have to say, I didn't know where my lights were for my camping stuff, and I didn't look until it was dark. Well, silly me. But, I have all those things. It's just, locating them and making sure they all work. But also I think the communications that you sent were numerous, and I think maybe for us to take those numerous communications more seriously and maybe pass them along to our community just the way you presented them, so that they have a more realistic picture rather than just looking on your weather app and saying, oh, it's going to rain. It's 100% chance it's going to rain. But that doesn't mean that you have to be prepared for an out-and-out storm. So I think maybe we could be a little bit more, share more information that we get from PG&E in these kinds of events. So not really aimed at you, but definitely a learning situation for all of us.
What I would say maybe to that is that I generally try to send an email out a month with some news and information that's helpful to you as a council members, or we're talking about possible projects or something that specific to you. And because over time, people don't want to get that many emails. There are times like during the storms when I started probably Wednesday afternoon or Thursday afternoon, Friday, Saturday, and I think one of my subject lines was last and final storm warning, and after that it was storm response. But when I send those out 3 or 4, one after the other, that's when I'm getting concerned about how we're gonna be prepared. And the comment I would say about being prepared for a day or 2 or 3 without power, it makes me think of in the 2014 Napa earthquake. One of the biggest urgent things that was requested from the county was AT&T's main office in downtown Napa. Anyway, I can't remember the street that it's on, but they have their, it's just one big cinder block building is where the AT&T building is. But it housed the county's 911 system. And their backup, and the whole county, most of the county had lost power from the earthquake. Parts of the building had landed, or something had landed on top of the backup generator, and their backup generator was out. And so we had to come in, as quickly as we could to restore power to the 911 system. And it was a reminder to me that you can have a backup plan, and sometimes the backup doesn't work. So we have to support each other as neighbors, do the emergency preparedness, check in on each other, and all of the things that and the town's done great jobs with the community preparedness meetings and all the people coming and having tables. So I think we just have to keep doing that.
Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mark, for coming out today. I appreciate the information. And I think as all the council members have said, is that every event like this is a learning experience. And so It'll help us prepare better for our future emergency preparedness meetings. And thank you for the information you send out. It's prompt and timely, and take care.
Thank you.
Councilmember McKee-Kent.
This is kind of a silly question, but was there any one cause that caused our entire town to go out? People are asking that, so I thought I'd take the bullet.
You know, I could probably go find that in our data history. So we do have, I could go find out what caused it. Right now, I didn't have the resources or the time to dig into that because it takes a little while, and I have to call some other folks who are doing the restoration efforts, and we can probably find that out. I would bet at least $100, or if somebody wanted to, meet me at $500, that it was a tree. Or multiple trees, several trees. In the vast majority of outages have been caused by trees, and if not full trees. And I just driving around today, and I took a tour around the city of Napa, and I drove up 29. I was on Silverado Trail just looking. There are either large trees or very large branches down everywhere. So I'm going to go with tree or a flock of birds that were blown into our lines by 80-mile-an-hour winds, but something along those lines. It wasn't that I'm aware of. I don't know of any vehicles that ran into the pole or that sort of thing.
Okay.
Frankly, it could have even just been the wind that actually blew a pole over, because we've had that happen down at the Orchard mobile home parks when we had strong winds that impacted Yountville 6 years ago. The winds were strong enough that they blew the poles over, or the poles snapped. Something like that.
Thanks.
Well, thanks very much again for coming to our council meeting and just giving us an update. We'll pass along all your information to the community. So, again, if you see any crews, tell them thanks from Yountville.
We will do that. I thank you, and we appreciate your patience while we get the power restored.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Next, we've got...
Mayor?
Put my glasses on. Oh.
Before we move
Reeves, yes.
along, I just wanted to ask on the February 29th Tech Resiliency class, when is it and where is it for people who wanted to attend that?
The class is at 3 p.m. In the community center.
I just wanted to add it is actually part of our golden ticket program, so registration is actually required for that. So we have a limited amount of spaces, but we're already working on a plan for summer where we can expand that.
Yeah. Just to note also, we are also planning a redundant class, a redundant seminar in either the second or fourth week of April that will cover this topic in depth.
All right.
Awesome.
Great.
But I know that I mentioned to Jason, he's becoming quite the YouTube master videographer, but we'll also look to see if we can video it, and then we can post it for those that can't get in. You can at least watch it online.
Okay. If you have power. So I'm going to move on to staff presentations and informational report. I've been busy at meetings. I'll go through my list first. So on January 17th, NVTA met, and lots of discussion continuing on Measure T. Measure T is an extension of our current half-cent sales tax. It will be a ballot measure on the November. They'll be putting a ballot measure on the November 2024 ballot. We might have NVTA Executive Director Kate Miller coming and giving a presentation as we get closer, and closer means once the board has made its final decisions about the language and lots of other details. And had a Cal LAFCO meeting on January the 29th. We are starting a big process in Cal LAFCO to really modernize Cal LAFCO. We've been basically doing things the same way for decades, including we have a mission and vision statement that are probably 50 years old. So And if something gets that old, in my opinion, it's time to get a new one. So that's what's going on there. Upper Valley Waste Management, we met yesterday. And just a couple updates. First, we've set the date at the community center for our Shred It Day. It is Friday before Earth Day, so it's April the 19th. It's also in your Parks and Rec guide, 12 to 3 p.m. I think that's the time. I haven't double checked. Also, we Upper Valley. The company it used to be the Pistone company. They recently sold out to West Connections, and they are doing a lot of modernization too. So if you happen to pay your bill online, they're changing the system. So you'll have to reestablish your login to pay your bill online, but you'll be prompted when you do that. So that's coming. Also, by, I think, July 1st, we're going to have a new service available to all the customers where they will pick up batteries and light bulbs, and that'll be rolling out. So if you don't read your insert in your garbage bill, I would recommend that you do, because that's where you can find all the details and any information that you might need. Also, we are moving at the Upper Valley Waste Management, Upper Valley Recycling Center off of Whitehall Lane. That's where all of our recycling goes to get sorted into different piles that then get sold. And that equipment is getting very, very old. So West Connections has a facility up in Ukiah, and they bought this just about 4 years ago. It was a big pear growing region, and this facility was for pear processing, and they sold it to West Connections, and they have a very large recycling area up there. So they have trucks that are actually going down to Potrero Hill, taking stuff down there. So they come back through Napa, back up to Ukiah empty. So they'll just be stopping and picking up our recycling, our blue cans that used to go to the Whitehall Lane facility, and taking them up there. So that's another change. And yesterday, LAFCO met, and we had a couple annexations that we did. One was annexing a county property with 157 acres to the American Canyon Fire District, and then just a couple of properties in the city of Napa to Napa Sanitation. So those are my meeting highlights. Councilmember Reeves.
I just wanted to report a little bit on the Climate Action Committee meeting. We talked again about REACH codes, which I think some of the smaller cities were not real in favor of because of how we contract for our services for building inspections and things like that. And I think the county will be taking the lead on establishing REACH codes, or at least discussing it first and then possibly establishing them so that other communities who have fewer resources will be able to tag onto or use that as a template to do a REACH code that gives us more expectation of electrification, basically, from our developers and people who are redoing their houses. So beyond what's already required in the regular building code. And then on the horizon is a EV charging station plan so that chargers are allocated in areas that meet the needs of our future electrification plans for vehicle charging. And I don't think Yountville will have a lot of chargers required of it, considering how much Napa needs, and also up in Calistoga. But I think that for the health of our community and for pursuing this idea of being more of a green community and kind of encouraging our businesses to think that way, installing chargers in town would be a really good focus in our budget discussions. And then they also floated the idea, the county floated the idea of a full-time county staff person for the Climate Action Committee. Right now, it's a third of a person at the county level, and the idea was that it's possible that then the smaller communities like Calistoga, St. Helena, and Yountville could use the other time that this full-time person has to make local plans for those communities. So that's another thing to think about that might be available to us. And then we received a report from Abby Young of the Bay Area Quality Management, Bay Area Air Quality Management Commission, and they're going for a big federal grant, and that we as smaller communities, smaller counties, they managed to get Napa and Sonoma and Marin County into this plan that they're submitting, even though we're not in that specific plan location. It's a little more South Bay area, but they have managed to attach some of the North Bay areas, North Bay counties, into the plan. So we might be able to see some funding for programs that we would like to see. And mostly it's going to be coming down through the BayREN, what do they call them, rebates and incentives for more electrified, what do you call them, amenities for your house. And then I just wanted to also ask a question. When we talk about NVTA and what their future is or what they're moving toward, how much do the local municipalities have to say on what their policies will be? And I don't need an answer today, but I think it's something that we as a council might benefit from talking about, where we see Yountville's needs are compared to the regional approach, and whether or not some of the things that residents find lacking in transportation in Yountville, can we influence what NVTA is sort of handing us back. It goes for the Climate Action Committee as well. What kind of policies do we want to promote, or are we interested in from this regional group? And I think it would be really great if we had maybe a workshop or something that all of us could discuss. What are our goals in being on these committees, and how can we move forward with more ideas that really, really apply to Yountville? So that's my report.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And so we have no closed session today. And with that, we can get a motion to adjourn today's meeting in a second.
I'll move that we adjourn to February 20th for our next meeting.
At 3 p.m.
Second.
Okay, do we have a second? I'll second. We have a motion and a second. We need one last roll call vote.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember McKee Kent.
Yes.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tripp? Yes. Mayor Mueller?
And with that, thanks for attending our very first hybrid meeting, Eric. It's nice to see you, and I vote yes. Bye.
Thank you, Councilmember. I don't think you can even see me.